Alright, well, it's about time to catch up the subject matter regarding what's happened within the last couple weeks to a few weeks or so, which took a little bit of time. As I've said a number of times both on these videos and as we'll see also obviously in a particular in-person opportunity as well, a lot of these videos are a few weeks up to a few weeks back, because it takes a lot of time to edit and process and think, and or even if not that, then to just record where I left off on a story that was prior, and it takes many hours to narrate it. So I only have so much mental gasoline to push through every day, and then I need a lot of days of rest. So sometimes I don't work as fast as time goes. So the practical result is, whatever comes out now was actually, there's weeks worth of gaps between where we'll be and where I was and where we are and where I am and all that. So finally, the stories have caught up to the point in time where I want to cover what seems to be the most critical update to date. All right. I don't really want to complain on here. I'm kind of, some days I'm in a talking mood. I'm not very much in a talking mood today. I just came off of a 36-hour dry fast, no food, no water, and it helped me think a lot. And that when we put the body through that, it's like a quasi-Phenibut, quasi-GABA B experience for anybody, but doubly so for me because of particular medical reasons, and we'll get into that on a separate topic regarding what happens when I'm doing engaging in fat burn and lipolysis, and that combined with non-working or way suboptimally working metabolic rate, liver work rate, which matches with the respiratory rate, which is already verified as being inhumanly low. So it all connects, and there's other ramifications as to what happens there. Prolonged solute saturation time within the body, and then of course that creates a second danger, because when you have a too high saturation of the tissues, that causes brittleization, crystallization, which causes brittleness. That's tears. So a lot of people who are, for example, known to take cocaine, there's, for example, a higher rate of intestinal tissue tearing phenomenon associated with cocaine use. Why? So cocaine saturates through the tissues. At the places it saturates, it crystallizes the area, the tissues literally, becomes brittle. If the irrigation, the natural blood flow cannot irrigate it away from that area fast enough, the crystal will seed, that area is going to dry out, and then like a dry fall leaf, you bend it slightly, or you put any kind of stretch demand on it, and keep in mind, intestines are meant to stretch. They're the most stretch demand tissue of the whole body. Nothing else in its regular use and function will call for an elongation that's many times its contracted state, right? Even for muscles. So you're gonna have some tears. Okay, so that's just some hints as to what's going on in my life the last few years. I really have inherited some very, very terrible things in that regard. But that, like I said, that's a separate subject matter. The real important subject matter for this is the emotional connectivity and the spiritual health of the family. So here's what happens. I have my witness, my good witness Anthony, one of the two primary listeners of this set of audios, and along with my mom being the other person. The secondary potential listeners down the line, doesn't have to be this way, but it may be this way, sad to say, if the wrongdoers in the situation don't turn around and repent fully and atone fully, then they stand liable to have this get publicized, just like Jesus Christ commanded you, all of you, to do publicize the issues. Do publicize the issues. Very, very important. Oh, and before we get into what happened, just to recap on and summarize again, as repetition is the mother of mastery, I think. To recap the principles on which we operate here morally, that's everybody. Here's the thing. I've had thoughts about this recently. This is important to solidify and crystallize into a solid form here so that everyone can understand what I mean. Everybody has a certain script in their head. Okay? It's the go-to script. Every human, every animal, everything has a go-to script, like a set of functions in the encoding in the mind that tells you that for any given situation conceivable, when you are in the situation, you have, unless it's forced that you do one particular thing and that's the only thing you could do. It's very rare. Usually, at every moment in life, you have a fork in the road, a decisional or choice-based fork in the road where you have freedom of choice, somewhat, to choose which road you're going to pick, and by that, which roads you're going to forego, which, by your estimation, are the roads that are not the correct roads to go on. Now, only two things in life will deter a person from going down a certain road. Number one, logical or rational capability will have you realize intuitively or rationally, whatever it is, that perhaps those are two subparts. So either A, rationally, or B, intuitively, you feel that a certain road or choice is suboptimal. So if your friend says to you, like, hey, you look fat today in that dress, okay? Now, in live time, when you're standing there, a whole bunch of intersecting factors are interplaying. Your total life experience, what you make those words mean to you, what moral value you attribute to what they did, what your relationship with that person is, what your own standing in 10, 20 different ways, and other 10, 20 different factors that I'm not listing. You combine them all to decide whether am I going to respond with, oh, Betty, haha, whatever, or, you're a bitch, Betty. Okay, so those are two way different paths. Your life will be changed. Your life will be changed based on what you do, based on what you chose. Every time anyone speaks a sentence to you, when they end with a full stop punctuation or a question mark, every decision you make there is another fork in the road that decides how the rest of your life is going to turn out in reality. This is the most important thing. You people don't realize the shaping power and the sabotaging power, consequently, too, that you retain in terms of what your own effects on your own lives are. You trip yourselves. You do it all to yourselves by how you mischoose. And remember, you can never directly shape what another person does, though there's indirect ways of helping another person along a certain route, assuming that's the right route. The only thing you can, and as I've said before, the only thing you can choose in this life, or the only thing that you can control in this life, is how you treat other people. That's it. So, going back to our example, when you choose one option or another, you're foregoing other options. So the word decision in English, but really with the Latin roots, to decide. Well, look at the suffix of the word, which is side, the C-I-D-E of decide. Side means to cut off. So if you're suiciding, you're cutting yourself off. If you're regiciding, you're cutting off the king by killing him. If you're patriciding, you're killing off a parent. If you're homiciding, you're killing off a human. Do you see? Side means to cut off. So when you decide, you're cutting off all other possibilities from life, because you're preserving only one when you forego all the others. That's the basis and decision of action. Well, before we embark on a road, we have to, the process of deciding involves picking which option is the one that's worthy to stay on, such that all the others become the ones that are necessary to cut off and to forego. Well, we will decide based on two things. Number one, whether rationally, logically, or intuitively the other options are inferior. Well, you need clarity of vision in order to decide that, and clarity of thought. If you're drunken, you won't think very well, so you'll choose a lot of stupid things at that moment in time, won't you? Because you're not fully conscious, because you're not fully awake. So you're the suboptimal piece of that equation. So the decisions you make are not optimal decisions necessarily. They are, from the base instinct, the animalistic decision, where you're reverted from human thinking to animal thinking because your neurology is suppressed. The higher capacities are disabled temporarily. But here's the thing. The other thing, besides internal dysfunction, personality disorders also present a similar dysfunction as alcoholism, except it's lifelong and chronic, and it's so pervasive that you don't even realize it's there until other people start pointing it out for you. If someone can remind me, if I can just remember to, who the hell's helping me and now anyway, right? I've hell, half these videos should be a damn SOS call to anybody listening, because you don't even know how bad my life is and what's going on and with me and at home and my own neural problems, and then for the collective world to at least with actual or constructive knowledge understand this fact and do nothing. All right, we'll see where the karmic guillotine's gonna fall for that. All I have to do is invoke it and it will happen. Why are you all doing it? Obviously God said do it right or be hurt. All I have to do as a claimant is come into God's court and says, yep, they didn't do it right and I paid for it by their negligence. Bring the karmic debt around. He says, yes. And then all the suffering on the other end. And I just smile. I say, yeah, but you should have known that before we had to go through all this. You non-visionary dummies. So anyway, the other thing that keeps you back from choosing the correct decision, and the other thing that has you forego possibilities in life, is fear. Fear. God has a lot of remedies for fear, but they're very simple. Those of you who live in anxiety and fear-based mechanisms, you will not choose an option even though it's a more correct option, because you have anxiety about that option and because you're scared. That's it. So even though actually by technical, rational, and intuitive understanding it is the superior choice, you won't choose it, because when faced with it live in the spot, you will falter, you will bend, because you'll say, oh, I'm scared. I don't know what you're scared of. And there's two groups of people in this life. One who have overcome the fear itself, but another, almost just as good, are people who feel the fear but have programmed themselves to do it anyway. However, I think the majority of people still around us, sadly, perhaps there's more anxiety in the world today now than ever before, which paralyzes people in a false way, which is not good. Also blinds people's decision making. In fact, if it gets real bad, people's vision will get conflated, such that they'll conflate the fear and hesitancy caused by their own feelings with the rationality of what the right choice actually is. So they'll start saying, oh no, the other one's bad, no, this one's good, because they so intertwinedly may have mixed up the aversion created by fear with what the aversion should be if it were actually a logical choice. They'll believe that the fear is an indication of what the actual right or wrong or logic or intuition is properly guiding you to. No. The best remedy I've seen for fear, besides ending up like a, you know, research chemical case induced coma, waking up, miracle case like mine. The only other option besides becoming a, you know, a neuromodulated receptor upregulated freak like me, the closest best thing is truly, honestly, in a genuine way, religion, or rather one particular line and vein of religious thought. And this one is correct, and it works. It works better than anything else you'll come up with, that's for sure. So if you try your other nonsense, it's not going to work. Then come back to this. First, cultivate a real well, the beginning of wisdom, they say, is the fear of God. Okay? Once you relate to what we can call in the abstract as the grand it of it all, that's, you look around, you see everything going on around you, when you abstract the nexus of all that into a singular idea, what we call that God. Okay, once you can actually relate to the abstract nexus as a real thing, that's called the entering into religious worship and modality and function. That's fine, that's good. Well, here's the practical benefit. Once you realize that not only is it the case that it guides all of us, but because it guides all of us, and because we only have free will up to a certain extent, as you understand, we all understand that the results in life is a tiny percentage of what we do to affect it, and then a whole lot of percentage of all the net aggregate things within this matrix programming / play, so to speak, that are just distinctly outside of our own control. Okay. That includes oftentimes other people. In fact, evil people or immoral people tend to be the only ones who actually, you know, somewhat ironically, but really actually it's understandable, they're better at manipulating other people. They're better at controlling or yielding certain predictable results from other people. And funny enough, the one thing it is, when I think about different things and watch different videos and listen to different thoughts, when someone will bring that up, intuitively I tell myself, I'm like, you know, that's the thing I'm worse at. That's the thing I'm worst at. See, Jesus couldn't prevent himself from getting stapled to a cross. Ah, you see what I'm saying? Someone slicker in a certain way would have. The snake in the Garden of Eden was able to get a certain result, the one he wanted. So sometimes being an effective domino chain starter can only happen through anti-order or anti, you know, proper orientation, because the opposing thing is becoming your own God, so to speak, which is aligning to a different set of moral principles, on and on, where essentially the game just runs different. The game just runs different, and you'll be worse at certain things. You'll also be worse at perceiving reality, and I'll bring in a related video about from one of the top experts on narcissism, probably before, after this, who will discuss kind of the irony of how very high IQ people, when they're actually cluster B personalities, they're high IQ in a limited way, but actually they're very stupid, and the rest of us marvel at how stupid they are. I say, yeah, exactly. More when we find this video posted and brought into our collection here soon. I'll give commentary. All right, resuming here. Well, let me just get to the point here. Like I said earlier, I'm in a little bit of a different alignment today because of a fast that I just had and then just broke now. I have a lot of issues and things medically, neurologically, and yeah, well, I still work with it. Despite the uncaringness and unkindness, unlovingness of certain other people around me, I still have to, you know, I'm forced to press on in my life alone. Very bad karmically for those who let it happen, but obviously if it's happening, what else can I do except trust that God's making it right, because that's the way he lets it be for a reason. All right, now the other point is, the way to get rid of fear is to just say, well, it's going this way because that's the way it's supposed to be. You see, you fear things when you take responsibility for them. When you feel responsible for the outcome later, you will hesitate because it's your life. Well, sure, it's your life, except here's the thing. As Christ said, those who lay down their lives will keep it, and those who try to cling on to their lives will lose it. When you look, if you are your own soldier in life, you're a mercenary, and you work for no one, or perhaps in an indirect way for the person that pays you, but in a more direct sense, you don't have as much of a strict accountability structure above you. You're not directly under a general who has the right over your life to kill you himself if you disobey, or otherwise to just take responsibility over you for your results. All right, when you're a independent contractor, so to speak, if you're facing a fear situation, you might not be so inclined to jump in. You might not be so inclined to jump in. You would say, forget it. I'm too scared, or my life's too valuable. It's too much, you think risk reward, and you are your own God. So you will say, no, that's okay. This is not for me. So here's the funny thing. Your adherence to the particular value set that you hold is the thing that decides what you do. So in that particular situation, your value set was the value set is maximize reward and minimize risk. So therefore, you adhere to that as your identity. First, it goes through your identity, then you function based on that. If your identity is a praying mantis, both the male and the female are mutually participating in the ritual of the male's head getting chewed off by the female after their intercourse. Do you understand? So in some weird way, it seems off by our value system, but because they have that value system, not only the female is doing it, but the male, they have the same genetics. You see, they are programmed to play into it to begin with from the very beginning. All right, so and then the male maybe will superficially struggle. Oh no, this is the part where my head gets eaten off now. Oh. But really, it's all done by tacit acceptance in a sense. Okay, because it's part of their larger value system that's programmed into them in this case. All right. Here's the thing. If God calls down on you to adopt a certain value system, there are value systems that transcend considerations about your own self. Let me put this to you in a way that doesn't directly tie into religious aspect, but it's the same idea and principle. You go back to ancient China, and I think some of the writings of the most ancient warriors and renowned authors, we may know who we're talking about. There's the top 2 or 3 authors and philosophers that are associated with things like this, principles of war and all that. They say, listen, here's what we know and hold to be true at the most obvious level. When we are brought to war, if the cause of there's a few motivating factors. I'm paraphrasing. I'm usually dead on accurate, but because I'm a little fuzzy with the memory for this, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but you'll get the gist of what I mean. They said there's a few things that will either motivate you to war, or otherwise it will cause or just really impel or compel you to go along the lines that you're going against, which is towards war. Okay, there's this reason, that reason, this cause, that cause. But then they say something funny. they use a funny term, and people may not understand it at first, but if you understand the meaning, you'll kind of get it. They say one particular thing that will compel you towards the engagement in war, and to also resign yourself to the results, whether it involves you winning or you losing. And you see, by the nature of man, if you have the proper moral high ground, for example, you've done nothing wrong, you're sitting in the village, and you are suddenly getting attacked by a bunch of raiders who, by your understanding and perspective, the raiders are doing something wrong because they're committing a essential trespass upon you by coming into your village and trying to kill all of you. When that happens, okay, unless you know you're kind of the bad guys, and then even then people will brainwash themselves to believe a whole lot of things, you see. You understand? I think most notably in modern times, we use the example of the Nazis, how you can really brainwash yourself to feel a lot of ways to justify whatever it is that you're up to. But here's the thing. If you know you're the good guy, you really are. Now say you're standing there, you're defending yourself. What beckons you to rise up in a full and authentic defense, that arousing to full defense, it goes opposite of where fear would otherwise bring you. See, if you only operated as strictly and plainly as the mercenary mindset, you would think, oh, all I know is that I like living, so therefore I will, what? You will sell yourself out in a sense, your dignity. So you'll keep your heads bowed and you'll just surrender. Oh, you guys want to attack me? Oh, I'm sorry. Huh? Okay, anything to avoid war, anything to avoid the fight, okay? Well, they kind of laugh at that. They say, you know, that we know, we're all reading this and writing this. We all know the one truth, at least how nature was, the human nature thousands of years ago. They said, nobody will do that. Everybody knows that what we call the moral law will compel you to die. Ah, you see? The moral law will compel you to die. And it's a good death. We say, we don't care, that's fine, as long as the attackers understand that you will not break against us and get away with it. We happily will kill as many of you as possible, and we will be killed doing it. Good. Yeah, bring it on. See, there's no fear anymore. Because when God imbues you through that, quote unquote, what is called there in that context, the moral law, it means that when you know you're morally right, you will die for it without it feeling even like a death. You're not scared of it because you're right. It's the only thing you know is you're right. So therefore, it doesn't matter if I die from the effect of my correct alignment to moral law. You will not win. Because we're not actually of the body, we're spiritual forces. So when someone aligns his energetics against your energetics, if you know your energetics are the right energetics with the right orientation, and the other one's the one who's committing something of a lower fiber, you will not yield to a lower fiber of energetics, a lower materia. So you will say, no, fucking that's it. So you give it up, you surrender it all to the matrix, who will decide what the fate is, whether you will live or die. Doesn't matter. And you'll do it happily. See, we kind of know that. Someone comes in and defends your family. By the way, this is mostly a male only trait. This is why in classical times it was understood, well, men have honor, women, well, they're colorblind to honor. They don't really know what that is. So we need to teach them differently, and then otherwise hold responsibility over them, because if you let them run around on their own, it's a torture world and everybody's going to lose. All right, so when someone comes into the house to burglarize you, what's the first instinct of the man? You're going to cower and bow to your new king who just came into your house to rape your wife and murder you? No. You see, at that point, it doesn't matter kind of almost what happens. You only know you're gonna try to kill, and you may be killed, but that's fine because you have the moral high ground. And that's, of course, with a caveat. case by case. Sometimes there's certain situations where, because of the complexities of that situation, honor means that you have to serve the ones around you who would be affected. If there's already a pre-hostage situation set up, so you have to live with those around you. But the point is, that's what you're doing anyway in the first place. When you're being aroused to fight and kill and be prepared to be killed, you don't even think about it that you're going to be killed. You just run to the front of the line to be ready to fight. That's the most important thing. So when any human being, mind you, man or woman, comes up against you, comes up against me, and challenges us on a moral I was just saying like a moral playground, but I mean like a moral, the moral sandbox. But it's not a sandbox. It's the moral foundation. That's what I mean to say. The moral foundation, the moral ground. If you know you are on the superior fiber, you will. It's a death match to you now. First of all, you're aroused. Your fight or flight instincts are on. You kill or be killed, and wrong energies must die. That's the only program you understand as a good moral person, stemming from the moral law, as they say philosophically, that comes down from God. See the difference? So by that moral law, you'll be compelled to die or kill. There's no other way. Now, not literally speaking necessarily, but figuratively speaking. We kill off the bad when you rebuke it, when you have it self-recognize that it's bad, and when you eliminate its effect from the grand sphere among which we live, the operative field on which we live. Okay? When you trust that the higher order is bringing things about the way it's supposed to be after you've done whatever you could do at this level, it's about first changing your value set, and then second, now that your identity aligns with your value set, then being consistent with your identity means, well, of course I uphold this value. You see? People who are slaves to material things, they won't steal whenever they can't get away with it, but the conditionality becomes, well, whenever they can get away with it, they will go steal. See the difference? Because their value is, I value the attainment of the material thing. So therefore, the other things have to stop, be broken, and will yield to your higher value. That's called ethics, is the hierarchy of values one maintains in their lives, is essentially what we call one's ethics. But here's the other thing. If you hold the principle, I do not steal, period, well, when that value becomes so firmly and authentically held that it becomes one with your identity, I don't do stealing, or stealing is never to be done as a value, will automatically translate into, I am not a stealer, I am not a thief. And once you identify with that identity, now you could be sitting with someone who just lost their wallet, and they're guaranteed to never realize or see that you could have taken it if you would go take it. Instead, you still will not take it. You will go and find them, chase them down, and give them back their wallet. Why? Because the value became deeper. First, you had the correct value. Second, it imbued and intertwined with your identity. And then thirdly, when you adopt this energetic orientation, within the greater functioning of the matrix itself, you actually become more consistently oriented to what in astronomy we call the cosmic background. And we kind of read our position in the universe with respect to the cosmic background, because you can't read it relative to the sun, because the sun itself is moving around the center of the galaxy. And you can't measure the center of the galaxy, because that in itself is moving around other galaxies. And you can't measure that group of nebulas or whatever, because that's moving around its sphere of the universe towards other trajectories. So what do? You find what the cosmic radiation is from the background, and you say that's where the objective absolutes are, and that's the net default. Okay, when you actually operate in a correct way in this world, and what's the only correct way? Dignifying all other beacons of consciousness, while on the other hand, always rebuking those who thwart the wrong way, such that you don't ever become accepting of their wrong. But it's a funny balancing act, requires a lot of insight, because it's between rebuking badness versus not offending others who are genuinely lost, or even might be lost but think they're doing it. It's very complex, and honestly, funny to say, I go a little bit back and forth on this, but really, when you look at the actual teachings of Christ as they're written word for word, they do a surprisingly good job of representing these things. So it's no mistake that the nations of the world, by karma or fate, ended up adopting a lot of those values, such as their principles. It was inevitable. It was waiting to happen, probably by fate, because well, first of all, it's a destiny thing about getting every nation to essentially become subject to and worship the God of Israel. That's very important. But the other thing is, through a separate subvector, which will classify certain principles such that the human mind in the aggregate on the face of the earth can be brought and uplifted to a certain state of awareness and understanding. Probably we would not have civilization the way we have it today if we didn't adopt those values thousands of years ago. Now, we probably would have just killed each other off, or otherwise maintained ourselves as rolling around in the dirt, because you wouldn't have what you have. All this can only come from order, and order only comes from the correct system of values that, like traffic lights. You get better order when you have red and green interchanging and switching in coordinated manner than you do to have every intersection be a stop all way, where furthermore there's no rule about who should go first when you come to the stop all way. So whoever feels like they want to fight for it, so then the fight's going to take some time. So there you go. You understand now? Now anyway, let's get to the main point. Alright, here's the deal. A few weeks ago, after my friend Anthony has spent months trying to get my mother Barbara, who apparently has stood in guilt of tremendous offense of all sorts of varied kinds, literally every single moment, every single response, every single choice, every single fork in the road that would happen over and over and over again, after each reply, and then each reply after that, and then each reply after that. All of that constitutes a separate offense. So how many offenses is Barbara Winslow guilty of? I don't know. 600. 610, 618, 625, 738, 739, like that. You understand? That's how God counts it. That's how it's seen. So when we're engaged in the task of rebuking it all, there's another point I had that I just forgot. There's another point I had from earlier that I did want to cover. I can't remember. This is why I need like more support and help with this stuff. I can't remember what I'm saying half the time. I just have to like strain to. You know how many times I almost burned my house down from cooking and then forgetting? You have any idea? You have any fucking idea? Maybe at least 10 times, I'd say at least 8 or so times in the last 6 months. Yeah. It'll be in waves. It'll usually be like 4 or 5 of them within a month. Not on purpose. I have a problem here. I've been saying it to people. People aren't listening. It's not on purpose. I can't remember what the fuck is happening. People need to fucking help. Alright? There's reasons that I've also said as to why, which is a separate subject matter. Beyond just the neural damage in itself. It's multi-factors of intersecting things. Now anyway, of everything I could remember, I'll just get as much out of the way as I can. And then if I remember later, I then have to re-record again and put more. That's how it is. That's why this all keeps going. Number one, because the wrong person refuses to admit they're wrong. Number two, or act like they're wrong, which is the actual correct thing that needs to happen. And number two, I keep like being like a neurally like blah, 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 again and again, again and again. You see? So instead of being a 5-minute video, it's a fucking 555-minute set of videos, because it's just me go help my brain damage, help my brain damage, you fucking idiots, help my brain damage. Okay, so anyway, what the hell else was I saying? Fucking I hate you people who are responsible for this. May the correct karma befall you all. Yes, good. That's good. God smiles when wrongdoers hurt and suffer and die, metaphorically or figuratively speaking, and sometimes even literally speaking, because they're all ultimately connected. They're one and the same ultimately at the end. Look at life, look at the universe, look at the Bible, look at history, look at it all. That's your lives, your badness. Stop it. Hurt yourselves, smack yourself so you learn. Oh, good. Okay, now what the hell else was I saying? Yeah, here's what this woman did. After months of delaying and denying and refusing, finally, I don't remember exactly what the catalyst of was, where I actually should remember, and because that's really extremely important to remark on these things and analyze them carefully and deeply. I can't remember exactly what the catalyst of change was. It may have just been a capricious change of mood, just randomly. Oh, okay, maybe now I feel like we will go meet. Okay, let's do that. You see? So if that's what it was, which actually, funny enough, my memory is not always great, but it's still even a little better than this, which actually is a sign that my memory might be getting even worse and worse regularly, which I've already said, I think. That keeps happening. Oh, yeah. Regardless, we all agree to meet. Now, here's the thing. If you've been denying or withholding meetings with your son, and then all of a sudden, after months, finally, you make a concession, like, you know what? Let's come to that negotiating table, so to speak. Okay? That's a big deal. That's a big step. So, in life, in a separate set of videos that I made once before, which I believe someone who I commissioned them to help me with the recording and posting of those videos. Well, she then went on later, many months or a year plus later, and just removed all of them out of some kind of sick form of spite. I told you people that every wrong thing you do will have a karmic attachment to it. So, you know, I don't know why you think you can just do whatever you want. No, don't love your feelings because they fucking betrayed you. But that's Satan. You loving your ideas is the definition of Satanism. It's called, I don't care what the objective cosmic background is. I love me right now, and me feels good when me does this. Blow your head off already at that moment, because you already fucked it up. Fucking idiots. I hope everyone gets what they deserve. But mind you, those are taken off, so I don't know where they are now. Alright? So, don't worry about it. Here's the point. In those videos, I offered a very important analysis of what constitutes right and wrong, and sin and not sin, in the most substantive way possible. Christ said, love your neighbor, and others said other simple things. I had a good way too that came up for me at that time, which I decided to share for the first time ever, and it made sense. And even at that time, a few people were listening to it. They were like, dude, this is really spot on. And when you say it this way, it kind of is revolutionary. It's kind of revolutionary. I'll say it again in short, although I took 12 hours to analyze it and state it in the previous separate channel that I had for this. The definition of sin is withdrawing something that either was already extended or should have already been extended. And let me put it to you another way. If you have a monkey and then you give it one, and now it has one cookie, and it'll proceed to eat, and it will enjoy its one cookie now after it's all said and done. Well, simple transaction there, right? That's situation A. Well, that's a good situation, right? It had, then it got to eat it and it's happy, right? In the absolute sense, there was the eating of one cookie. Okay, well, I'm going to give you situation B, which is also, in the most ultimate sense, is the same thing as a matter of form in the superficial sense, but actually not really. It's also the eating of one cookie by a mother. Alright, resuming once again. This damn thing keeps cutting off on the recording. Every once in a while it just stops. I don't even realize it doesn't make a beep or a flash. Just discreetly stops, and I keep talking. Sometimes for a few minutes or several minutes or way longer, and then I realize, oh, all that pure, precious. It's like when you write a college paper, 15 pages of the most best thought you've ever written, and then boom, power off, no autosave. You wanna fucking go to Times Square and spray everybody in the face with a shotgun. Not really that extreme, but almost that extreme. You understand? So the point is this. What was I saying? The monkey. So the first monkey gets one cookie. It's happy. The second monkey, in a situation B, well, let's say you give it 2 cookies, and then you take away one of its cookies. Yeah, then what's going to happen? Exactly. So it still had one net cookie left over that it got to eat. Same like the first monkey, right? It's at the dry material level, it's the same. Both situations are the same in terms of the net absolute end effect, but they're not really the same, are they? At the level of energetic, dignity-based transactions, emotional transactions, they're not the same. One of them is good, one of them is a deficit and a bad. So how could that be, even though materially it's the same? Because material and the emotional, spiritual, energetic transactions are 2 different things in life. One of them is a beautiful gift to the monkey. Another set of events is an indignation to the monkey, to that monkey. So they both had one cookie at the end and got to eat it. One of them's happy, one of them wants to fucking rip your face off. Go figure that. So what's the real karmic principle behind it? What is the definition of sin? It's withdrawing anything after you have given it. You don't withdraw it unless it's with cause or with justification. So therefore, all unjustifiable retractions are sin, constitute sin in this life. That's it. It's that simple. All right? It might be what you agree to do. Therefore, always keep your word. Because if you say something to someone, so to leave them with an expectation of something, and especially if they rely on that expectation, but even if they didn't rely, it's still an indignation to someone. It's still a dishonor if you suddenly change my mind whenever I want. Because if someone is brought to feel and experience a karmic, a spiritual or energetic indignation in their own minds because of something you did, you are the one at fault. You are the one at fault. You. Not them. That's the thing that cluster B types can't get. It's your fault when you did the thing that leads to the bad thing. And I'm going to use another example. I already used this in a pre-recording that got eliminated accidentally. I'm just repeating myself now what I said a few moments ago on a dead recording that you're not going to hear. So here it is again, now live. This one will be preserved. Imagine you have 2 types of girls, American girls and a Russian girl. You go to the American girl, she's a hi, like as if she's your best friend your whole life. The moment you say anything to her, it's as high as if you're her fucking king for the moment, okay? And you could have anything you want maybe, and you're a very lucky man, all right? Well, guess what? The next day, everything that you thought was that you were special, no, you're not special. You get nothing from her the next day, and you never see her again. And she just gives the same to other people, but she doesn't give to you anymore. Why? Capriciousness and the fake warmth towards everybody, where actually You're sinning against everybody because you're always withdrawing that which you gave to so many people. So therefore, you're causing indignation to them. So along similar principles, you know, when you give 2 cookies, don't take away 1. Better you give 1 and let them keep the 1 than to give 2 but take away 1. You see? Very important. Never take away what you've given. Now look at the example of the Russian woman. Traditionally, she's known as being warm in the end, but being very cold at first in a way that Westerners don't often understand. You'll say hello to the Russian one and they'll just be like, hello, like as if they don't know you. Why? Because you haven't earned anything yet necessarily, but here's the beautiful thing of it all. Superficially, at the very outset, at this most superficial level of analysis, dryly and simply will seem, oh, well, therefore the American one's better because they treat you more warmly first as compared to the Russian one. I say no. The opposite is true. In the long game, you're going to be left angry after your experience with the American one because they, as freely as they gave, is not a true giving because that's called Indian giving. You give and then you take away. So you didn't really give, did you? You had a string on that gift and you just tugged at it later at any point that you felt like it. That's a worse sin than if you never gave in the beginning. Why? Better I give the monkey 0 cookies and it just stayed 0 cookies and it didn't get to eat that day. Then I gave it 2 cookies and then took half its food away at that moment in time and left it with only 1. It will have a fuller tummy and an angrier mind with more hate towards you. That's the point. It's not about the material, almost no connection. It's about what energetic transactions are you engaging with people. The psycho-emotional / spiritual economy is the economy that matters on this earth. That's primary. The material is secondary. That's where you people have it reversed. You think it's the material economy and transactionary ledger that is the one to maintain with closeness and to regard the other things in a secondary way which yield to that. No, you have it backwards. You have it backwards. So the Russian one, you know how they're programmed? Maybe not as much anymore, and I've heard stories and read statistics about how the divorce rate is shooting up in the recent decades now there because they've taken on a more Western lifestyle relatively. That could be the cause, but there's also tremendous other, they've been through a lot of damage. For the last 100 years they've been through quite a mind job over there with all sorts of things, and then they haven't found stability yet, I don't think, culturally or energetically. I don't think. It's just, may they find their stability. But anyway, here's the point. We know that traditionally, here's how the Russian woman is regarded, or the Soviet / Eastern Bloc woman. Cold to you at first, but once they open up, if they give you a little bit of nice, where they now you got into the next deeper layer of their heart like an onion, and now they give you smiles. Those smiles are once you have gained it, it's like a trophy that's permanently yours. It'll never get taken away from you. Except in the event that you do something stupid, like where it's clearly bad. And then even then, what's a yin's nature is to have grace. Grace means even if you're doing something dumb, they still will believe in you and give you many chances and free good chances. That's the blessing of a real true woman. Not the fake type of woman that this Barbara Winslow is, my fucking mother, who gives and then takes. Smiles but then shames in a false slant. No, that's not true yin. So that's not good. But with a true yin, you might have a Russian who, once you merit the closeness and the hand holding and the warmth and the endearment, you just won that for life. You will never lose it again unless you fuck it up, where it's totally you and then totally for a long time, like you keep fucking it up and they give you many chances. You have it for life. All right, an American woman will just ghost you. Why'd you stop texting him? Because I felt like it. And that's good enough in the twisted moral system's value system. Well, don't do that, because that's not actually a healthy energetic transaction, because it's treating you like a commodity, number one, you know, you're not useful as a thing anymore, as a resource, by the evaluation of another, because that's a self-centered, they only think about them, number one. And number two, yeah, taken away from your human value, and yeah, and they just don't have regard for how you feel. What a beautiful dog. That's a beautiful dog. All right, well, now where was I as I was recording this? Here we are. Where am I? I can't remember. All right, I'm saying something about this. I can't remember what I was saying. The beautiful dog. No, what else? I can't remember. Not helping me. They're gonna pay. I hate them. Everyone's gonna pay who's allowing this to happen. I can't even remember, and they're just letting it happen even though I don't fucking remember. Okay, no problem. I don't remember what I was saying. What was I saying? What the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, about the Russian women. Yeah, so you know, classically, once you earn the thing, and you kind of half earn it, but it's easy to earn. You see, they don't make it hard for you to earn, because that's also a ungivingness, which is the opposite of yin. So you have to earn it, but number one, it's an easy earn, and number two, you'll never lose it after that. Oh wow, what a beautiful blessing in this life. You see, that's what makes a man feel good. That's like, like, there you go, like, that's the waters of life. That's being brought to an oasis, and you're hydrated forever. In the dignity transactional field, they dignify you correctly. A fucked up person doesn't dignify other people. That's the difference. So as I now make my point, the only thing that a sin is energetically in the substantive sense is taking away from someone after you've given. The retraction mechanism. Retraction mechanism is sin. The only time you're allowed to retract after you've extended, secure the understanding of the person who you're retracting from. So first you go, imagine first you just take away a cookie from somebody. Hey, what the fuck? Or you're walking down the neighborhood, you know, one lady who used to say hi to you all the time no longer says hi to you for no reason that you could discern. On the face of it, is she sinning? Yes. It's a sin against you. A sin means a transgression against you, a trespass against you. Trespass against what? Your dignity. But down the other block, there's also a woman. She never said hi to you. And so today, she also didn't say hi to you. Yeah, so? Well, you got the same end effect. There's two women, neither of them said hi to you. Right, but which one are you mad at? The first or the second? Ah, exactly. So the ultimate sin of life is never retract. And now there's only one situation in which you're allowed to retract. It's when the other person does an actual offense against you first. In which case, your retraction of them isn't sin in itself. It's not an offense in itself. It's the correct displacement measuring and balancing of what they did to you that you now are setting for them. Because ultimately, if they're unrepentant in it, they will be cutting themselves off from you. But whose fault is that? Their fault. They chose and signified and agreed to get cut off on the fact of them not treating you properly to begin with. You see that? This part is very, very important to understand. And actually, this is a perfect loop around, because this brings me around to exactly what I wanted to cover in the beginning when I started recording these things today on this video set. Let's bring up to mind, I might as well show it on the screen, but maybe not. You've seen it already, I think, so just recall it to mind, because we're all supposed to be experts on this by now. Here's the ultimate karmic principle. There's only one case in all of the karmic, energetic, transactional planes rule set that you can legally, lawfully, properly retract what you've given already extended out to someone, such that you are now, you're only allowed to click up. You can never click down, is the general rule, right? Because anything else would constitute sin. Clicking back down to a lower level is a sin. You're only allowed to ostracize someone from your life by functionally cutting them off, or giving them any lower degree of relation than you used to give at any point, is you cutting them off unjustly. Right. It's only just if they offended against you first. That's the key. That's the thing. Some people want to believe in a twisted version of God's law. It's Satan actually's law. You don't realize it's a twist, that it's Satan's. But what does God's law actually look like? Well, we cover that. But what do some people twistedly believe? They say, oh, number one, Jesus dropped the charges. So if you ever do anything that's bad, you're still immune from being held to account. So if I did anything bad against you, you should just let it go. Forgive it or forget it. Otherwise, you cannot just hold me to account. No. Right, so obviously that doesn't work. Why? Because, number one, Jesus spoke to numerous classes of people. So in life, you have rebukes that are happening because somebody did a wrong. All right? When that happens, there's two classes of people. There's those who are unjustly wronged, who are now rightly engaging in rebuke. Of course they are, because their dignity was just violated, so they naturally want to go, hey, what the hell? Okay? The second class is that group of people who did the wrong, who are now getting accused back on account of the first offense that they did. Okay? Now, was the bad, twisted human tendency to deny, and to fight and to defend and all that. Okay? Some people, particularly those who belong to the second class, the class of people who are doing the wrongs, they want to operate out of both sides, where they say from the one side, oh, maybe this stuff is nice, or whatever. No, really what they like is, I think Jesus dropped the charges, so get away from me. You don't have to be so mean to me. Oh, you're bad if you're mean to me. No. Here's how you tell what the real law is. Christ never addressed the second class of wrongdoers and said, for those of you who have done the wrong, may you know that you are entitled to coming into possession of the free forgiveness that the other person must give you. So therefore, when anyone accuses you of the wrongdoing, just turn to them and defiantly say, God forgave me, and Jesus forgave me. Jesus will say, no, I have nothing to do with that. 3 principles. Number one, from one part of the story, somebody turns to him and says, hey, my brother did so and such a thing wrong, or the inheritance was given unevenly. Say something to my brother so that you fix him. Jesus didn't say, yes, that's right, I fucking made it all happen, and now I will fucking enforce how you should be listening to when I said that the debt is forgiven. No. He said, dude, who the hell made me master over your business and your affairs? You and him work it out properly. You rebuke him. And then when he defaults on that, you get your respective witnesses, and then you bring it up to me. Don't just sit here and slander your brother and expect a magic enforcement. That's not going to happen. I'm not here to put my way into anyone else's spheres automatically. You need to work it up from your own internal buildings. You see, number one. Number two, when addressing the class of people who are wrongdoers, again, he never said, yeah, just insist that you should be forgiven. No, because it's not your place to make the claim, because you have unclean hands. Christ never in one place in the Bible, he never said, you who have done wrong, just know that keep bugging the ones who expect an apology from you and say you don't need to give them one because Christ forgave you. That makes no sense, and it never will. He only said, agree with your adversary quickly before they put your ass into more karmic prison. Remember that? So that's the instruction for the wrongdoer. He never backs the wrongdoer. And the other place, the third place, he says, Matthew 18, he says, if your brother doesn't hear you, you're going to be rebuking him now. And then all you witnesses will be establishing that what he did wrong is wrong. And then you apply the law, and then you ostracize him. By that, he declared that what? The second class of people deserve what? Freedom and magic forgiveness, or ostracization? Ah, he said you're ostracized, which means you're cut off from the people. Okay, so I'm pointing to 3 places that clearly state the law. But, you know, you believe that I have challengers who come out at me and try to contradict what I say? If people have admitted that my understanding of the law is better, who are you to come at me to try to improve my understanding? It doesn't work that way. You see that? You can't say both, you're very understanding, not much better than mine, and then later try to grasp at fucking straws. Oh, look, maybe Jesus forgave my sins. It doesn't work that way. Because the last part of the Bible that I want to quote, the 4th source, is that he addressed the second class of people, the wrongdoers. He said, if you come to the altar and there you remember that your brother has something against you, get away from the altar. Do not stand there. Remove yourself. First, you must go be reconciled with your brother. Then God permits you to come back and interface with him. Stated another way, God doesn't want to hear from you and will not hear you until you, for as long as you have a karmic claimant at the peer level here who says you've done wrong against them and they're actually right, you're cut off immediately, and you stay cut off. It doesn't matter how many times you try to reapproach the altar of God, physically, metaphysically, figuratively speaking. Doesn't matter. You're going to be cut off and stay cut off. It's all of it is as if it's without effect. But anything the other person will say, they will have effect. Because you're told that you're not allowed to continue receiving God's grace while you're still in the state of sin. But that's consistent with the Catholic Church's teachings too. The only problem is there's a doctrine where you could go to a father and you get magic forgiveness. That goes against what Jesus Christ said. Therefore, anything that church says is heretical. Break away from the church. That church is not working for you. If they put a doctrine that says the Father can magically forgive you, unless you look, I hope they have something more specific placed there to indicate that, maybe somewhere in the catechism or I don't know what, where they say, actually, you really should be getting the forgiveness first from the peer level person. Because I'll tell you something, the Jewish tradition has it completely right. The Jewish tradition is completely right. There's no fucking it up there in that way. When they say you approach Yom Kippur, you get released from the debts of sin where you make it up with the other person directly first. Never you're going to get a free. Jesus said the same thing. He was a Jew. He didn't make it a new thing because that wouldn't make sense. Start getting it. So these people wonder, they're wrongdoers, and they want to go, I don't know, I just want to magically just shrug my shoulders and spin around in a circle 3 times and just go, ta-da, everything's fine now, right? No, you're still in a karmic torture wheel because you didn't really repent and beg. Not God. The feet of the person you hurt is where you fucking will be crying. That's the only place you belong now. God says, what, you want to come to my altar to interact with me? No. I'm pointing you there. That's where you go first. You get it? 4 places. So don't get it twisted. All right, now when there's quotes in the Bible that says don't judge your neighbor, don't judge it. You know what that means? It means, number one, don't judge in a manner that's hypocritical. That is, don't judge when you yourself have done the guilty thing, this of the same kind or a similar class of kind. Number two, don't judge where it's not your business. So if your neighbor hits his wife, can you sue your neighbor? No, legally. Why? Because you don't have jurisdiction. Maybe the wife can sue her husband, but she wouldn't, obviously, because yin gives grace. So they should just internally resolve it in some sensible way. But the point is this: you definitely don't have a claim because you're not a party to it. So when we talk about other people and gossip and make judgments on them, like, I heard Bob is very bad who lives down there. That's the judgment that is forbidden by the Bible. Don't judge other people / condemn / criticize other people where you don't have jurisdiction. What gives people jurisdiction to judge you? When you are the victim yourself, you have the jurisdiction to judge the wrongdoer who affected you directly. And then if you don't take responsibility, Christ says in Matthew 18, the jurisdiction extends to witnesses. And then once the witness established that it's more than just hearsay, that the one person claimed you did it wrong. No, multiple eyes, multiple sets of eyes all agree you did wrong. Now we're not only allowed to, we're commanded. It would be a sin if we didn't tell the whole public about it. You see? And now the whole public has jurisdiction over your affairs. Where when we talk about you as a wrongdoer, that's not gossip, nor is it slander. That's just called, because it's verified by the witness. That's why the witness is key. The witness is like a functional jury or judge in that regard. We're all agreeing we're seeing the same thing, right, guys? Yes. Click, it clicks into being. Clicks into correct action. Because God says, or Christ says, because where 2 or more of you are gathered together to see and behold the same thing, that's where I am in the Spirit. Or that's where God is in the Spirit, because one person's claims are hearsay, but 2 people who agree in conjunction and corroborate cause karmic power to come against you. So you better be careful, wrongdoers, because if multiple people come against you after they've talked to you directly, but you've denied them, then they come together and they agree that you did wrong and you still deny them, then for the first time it's karmically allowed that you could be talked about publicly, and that's not gossip. That's just you getting correct karma back to hurt yourself the way you're supposed to be in pain. That's good. Till you submit finally and tap out from the pain of what you decided to put yourself through by refusing the actual victims the repentance that they deserve. I don't know how many times I could repeat the same things in one way, slightly different way, in a slightly different way. It's like we're talking to a fucking wall. But I hope not. It just keeps looking like that. I don't know why. It cannot literally be any more humanly obvious than the way I've just... if any human being could be put through all this to listen and still not get it, you have an IQ of 2. You're retarded. All right, so continuing on. Eventually, my mother was brought to a place of mind where she agreed to do a meeting. Now, this is 7 months about too late. And yet, what could we do? If she wants to sit, then we owe her to meet and agree to sit, so long as she doesn't do anything wrong from there, because this is a new place of coming back, where if she shows to be repentant, good. Well, guess what? One Sunday, about a couple weeks ago from the time of this recording, but it's taken me weeks and weeks to catch up to this point in the narrative, she sat down with us. Prior to that, I demanded that Anthony make and find some kind of, make some pronouncement or finding that, like, look, my mom is obviously in the wrong. You see that, right? I would even say that my friend Anthony, as good and as much integrity as he has, he might have been overprotective of my mom in this situation, by right, compared to what the rights would be of the parties respectively. He was over hesitant to just flat out call it down that direction. So I mean, I understood his position because he wanted to be not just careful but extra careful. So I wasn't really mad at him, but it had us prolong a lot of our time with this, because I was saying a lot, making clear a lot of things, and Anthony was like, yes, and I still want to see it from the horse's mouth herself what the deal is. And I said, okay, if you really want to see with your own eyes, then it might take a longer while, but hopefully you'll get to see, and then you'll see for yourself what we're dealing with. Okay. So you saw with his own eyes first what happened. If I could summarize what happened, and I think I might interject somewhere in these recordings Anthony's version and summary of what happened at the meeting, because number one, I was 50-50 on whether or not it should be recorded when we finally sat down for the in-person conversation. In hindsight, I should have decided to record it, and probably, almost certainly, as a policy for the future, I may record anything that happens from now on out. Because I've been drawn to see how things are going. You see? So, the more you see with your own eyes, the more you will figure out what the right course of action is. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't recorded that way, so well, maybe she recorded it, and probably she was pretending that she didn't record it. Who the hell knows? Debtors and wrongdoers do all sorts of weird things. When they misthink in one way, you don't just misthink in one way. How you do anything is how you do everything. Okay? How you do one part of life is how you do all parts of life. Because how you do anything is all parts of life or subfractals of all your other parts of life. So, you see? That tends to really be the case in a lot of ways. Anyway, I'm going to link in what Anthony says about it. He'll give a short summary of what he understood, or maybe we'll record a mutual conversation, whether a phone one or a live one, and make it a fuller thing. Also, sometimes I have a problem with words. Since I had brain damage and neural dysfunction for 2+ years now, that's a more serious level than the neural dysfunction I had prior to 2 years ago, which was also present still for years. I was able to talk better back then. I could talk even less now, so I have to try to access brain words in 8 different ways to try to get a sentence said, but it's not said the best way. It's very funny. You have no idea what the internal brain wiring struggles are just to get the form out here that almost looks mostly okay, but it's not quite the same, and really it's not. So sometimes it helps when I'm talking in conjunction with other people is how we really see it, because the prompts will help me move right, but I have a harder time self-prompting in the right way because there's structural limitations now. It's harder for me. But just off the cuff, to summarize what happened, we sat down, and my mom shockingly seemed very easygoing and understanding and sympathetic. Almost too easygoing and sympathetic. If you didn't know my mom any better, you would think, oh, this lady, we've been talking bad about her. Oh, it seems so fine and nice. Yeah, but not really fine and nice. And good thing that eventually afterwards it was just clearly seen what kind of person they are. But regardless, during the meeting, she seemed to, number one, admit that there was essentially by Anthony and mine's findings, there's no valid reason for her to do some of the more egregious things she did that have to do with the date of Sunday, October 9th itself. We came to agree that it was improper and not right for her to have acted the way she did, starting from how she treated me in the phone call and moving into her decision to call the cops. We didn't even begin to discuss the finer details, or the specific counts, so to speak, regarding, and what about her use of the keys, letting the cops in my apartment when I had locked doors? What about every single one of the other, 687 freaking offenses? We only like covered 1 or 2. So at this rate, we would be sitting down every weekend for a year and a half before we covered it all. You see? But she kind of tried to just be like, well, number one, I'm sorry for this and that. So we were kind of like, okay. Anthony also realized by that, because he was looking for a deeper explanation, he wanted to see live from her whether or not there'd be something to explain what the hell happened. Because on its face, Anthony was like, yeah, if I find out nothing new, then what happened to you is total bullshit. I said, okay, well, you're not going to find out anything new. He said, I don't know that yet. Let me really see it for myself. Then he saw it for himself. Then he's like starting to hint to her, okay, well then in that case, I think he was almost even surprised a little bit. I really was like, really, in this case, Barbara, you're like, that wasn't fully right. You're kind of wrong. Although he was gentle in the way he was representing these things. Maybe even a little too gentle. But regardless, it appeared as though my mom was willing to talk things out. By the end of the first meeting, she said, look, I commit to meeting with you guys for the purpose that we've created every week. So there will be no problem with that. We are like, wow, that's amazing. What else was discussed during this meeting? She said, look, you're saying that I might have narcissistic tendencies, but this I don't understand at all. That was almost surprising to me. I was like, you don't understand that? I didn't expect to hear that. But of course that's consistent, because narcissists can't perceive their own color blindness, so to speak. So in hindsight, actually, yeah, that would make perfect sense. If she's a narcissist, she would really have no clue, but also by instinct try to act nice, extra nice, and pretend like, oh, look, see how nice I'm being? I'm the farthest thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, when Solomon, wise King Solomon, was sitting there judging 2 women, one of them had a dead baby, one of them had a live baby. All right, resuming again. Got cut off again. But as I was saying, wise King Solomon was evaluating the claims of the 2 women that came before him. One of them was the mother of a dead baby. The other one was a mother of a live baby who was being claimed that the baby got taken. You understand the story. We've gone over this already. One of them is being a fake and the other one's being real. But at the surface level, they all look the same, because at the surface level, one woman says, I'm the real mother of the baby. The other one has the dead baby. Give me that baby, that's mine. And the other one says, is it mirror words? I'm the mother of that baby. That baby's mine. The other one's the wrong mother. I'm the one. Give it to me. You see? So what does King Solomon do in his wisdom? He says, he does not stay with the surface appearance and say, well, I don't know, because who knows, you know, a chameleon will camouflage, and they're pretty good at camouflaging, so I cannot see if it's the real thing or if it's a chameleon. No. Wisdom. When God gives man wisdom and he manifests it, that's the thing under which we live. Nothing else. Well, let me tell you, the wisdom of Solomon exists to multiple degrees and levels in many other people in this life besides Solomon himself. And you have someone in front of me who's making these claims and pretending not to understand anything, and she spent a lot of time even denying that she understood. We spent half the time arguing about whether or not she having her convincing her that she was wrong on calling the cops. You go about this stuff over and over again, and she's like, I don't understand with these like daisy, you know, spinning eyes. Oh, I don't know, but smiling, everything's nice, right? We'll see. At the end of the meeting, she said, okay, I promised that we were going to be meeting again. I'm committed to it. Okay, we'll see. Does she act sorry, or is she actually sorry? Is she saying sorry without the substance? Is it only a fake form sorry? Or is there a rock foundation of a true sorry powering that ship? We'll find out like this. So, here's the deal. one of the things she said was that she didn't understand the claims of narcissism. Okay, so if you're apologizing to someone where you admit you don't understand the basis of how narcissism is being attributed to you, what's the responsible thing for someone in my position to do in the course of teaching you and helping you learn better why it is that you are wrong and what it is that's underlying by apparent nature the constellation of your wrongdoing? Well, a moral man in my position, all moral men would do the same thing, is we would go and further bring you more comprehensive content, data, and evidence for narcissism so that you are brought closer to understanding what it is. But of course, by wisdom, this will have one of two effects. You see, just like King Solomon knew that the one decree will cause two different effects on two different parties based on what the nature of their heart is, so that once the nature of their hearts are exposed, he knows who the right mother is. Just by me doing the same thing, what the wrongdoer's reaction will be will determine whether or not she is a wrongdoer who's truly repentant or a wrongdoer who is only fake repentant, who isn't really sorry, who once push comes to shove, she will revert back to a deader mindset of challenging, defending, contradicting, all that bullshit. So I simply said, all right, we're gonna sit next weekend and wait. And then I put up a couple more videos stressing the narcissistic elements. And what do we see from that? Well, we see if someone's genuinely interested in coming to the understanding of how it is that they brought someone else to feel that way, it wouldn't affect them in their minds or hearts that the son that they wronged is posting more content about how they might be narcissistic, or what narcissistic things comprise of, and also what the son's experience was furthermore within the life, because that's his what? Right and entitlement, because of what? The jurisdiction that the mother created, because of what? The original wrongdoing she did, which what? As of yet remain what? Unrepented for. Learn, my children and students. Learn. Good. You see? Always more wisdom in learning. So, at this point, now, this makes perfect sense. If you have a repentant person, they would simply be unaffected. You said more content about anything. Could be anything in the world. It could be you're a green alien from Mars. What the hell's wrong with you? She would say, look, I know that I brought you to feel that way, and I'm sorry. You see, whether or not it's true is another matter entirely. You cannot claim against it. Why? Doctrine of unclean hands. Doesn't matter. You lose the right to defend yourself when you did something wrong, and to counter challenge anything. But if she's a fake chameleon lizard snake pretender, what are we gonna see? I'll post a couple more videos of narcissism, and then what's gonna happen? If they're a fake person, they'll come back out with offense, magic offense. Oh, what is this? What is that? Would my audience behold what me and Anthony both beheld? And this is something Anthony texted to me 5 to 6 days after our original meeting, where we were less than 24 hours away from a meeting. With less than 24 hours from the meeting, here's what was done and shown. A text from my mom to Anthony, which after seeing, in order to inform me, because of how ridiculous this was, he actually took a screenshot of this and showed me himself, so there'd be no misunderstanding as to what was being said and claimed. She wrote to him saying, "Hi, I listened to the videos, the most recent couple or so that were uploaded within that most recent time frame in that week, but there is one big problem. I completely disagree with the content of it." But when you're the wrongdoer and the debtor, are you entitled to agree or disagree? Or are you entitled to pay the guilt price, and then later you can consider whether or not you were wronged somewhere along the lines? But anyway, we continue. Their facts are not truthful and very misleading. funny, is this the first time or not the first time that I was implicitly accused of saying something misleading and non-factual? Oh, you mean she did this before? Yes, that's right. We've all seen it. But when that happened, and Anthony rightly in my place, because I wasn't even talking to my mom directly by that point, although I did in a certain sense to establish, I said, what are you saying this, what are you claiming I said that's not truthful? She never substantiated this. Anthony did the same because I was done with it. And he said, yeah, Barbara, you got to like tell me what you said, what he said that's wrong, because you can't just say he's lying and then not substantiate what the lie is, because then it seems that you're lying, you see. So it's in her interest to substantiate it, but she can't do that if it's just a fake claim. So a faker will run away from substantiating. Only a real claimant will substantiate. That's how, again, Solomon knows the difference. So we'll track here to see what the hell the deal is. But once again, he is completely wrong on everything. Really, everything. Wow. So first, when we sat down, she admitted she was wrong, either expressly or implicitly. But we Anthony and I both nodded in affirmation together. They're like, yeah, it's clear she's wrong. Well, he continues. He has no idea what the narcissist mother is. That's what you're offended by. The implication that you have narcissistic traits? No. But because you dare challenge my summation and conclusion of you as being someone who's consistent with narcissistic traits, now it will only be more painful for you to get dragged through the more particularized assessments. So we simply go to licensed people who post videos where they state the specific criteria that constitute or are consistent with narcissism, and we're going to take your whole story and compare to. So they these wrongdoers keep thinking that when you resist, they're going to win by resisting. No, by resisting, it's like a dog who tries to resist the chain on the leash. You're not going to break the chain by pulling. You're only going to make the chain dig more into your own neck and give you deeper scars because you thought you could pull. Don't pull. Don't resist. When you're wrong, God puts the framework around you that you'll only get more hurt by trying to resist the correct God judgment. You understand that? That's the most important thing. It was admitted within that meeting by my mom that, John, you are more superior in the understanding of these things and law and Bible and morals than I am. Well, if that's true, do you think that I'm right on a whole bunch of things, but then somewhere else I'm completely wrong? That's the part you don't seem to understand. I'm not accidentally right somewhere else and then totally wrong somewhere else. What an insult to me that you could even think that I'm not. I mean, I don't even know how to say it without sounding not humble, but you need to just fucking get it. You're almost practically trying to box with God himself. You don't even understand the sheer magnitude of lowered gap between yourself and where I am. If I said aliens are coming tomorrow, you could fucking bet money that aliens are coming tomorrow. And you'll just swear it's impossible until tomorrow comes, there'll actually be aliens. You'll say, how the fuck did you know? I say, now you start to understand how deep my fucking mind power is to assess reality. My reality testing ability is so extremely precise, people freak the fuck out when they see how right I am about everything that fucking happens. That's it. I stand on my own laurels. But only stupid people believe in themselves to believe that it could be anything else. It's pathetic. You don't even realize how dumb and blind you are. But she continues, I'm not a narcissistic mother, that's for sure. Wow, for sure? For sure? So here's how stupid you actually are. Because we put so much rich content on the matter already, which so clearly indicates that it's true. Any reasonable person would have already realized that one in your position is. But when you deny it, it only shows and affirms that you're that dumb. So now we're going to go even more deeper to even more fine resolution to draw out the truth even more clearly. So remember, kids, don't fight against judgment. worship and fall down to correct judgment. That's it. Now, I will not allow any more malicious attacks on my person. You see the trick here? So she conflates my attribution of her narcissistic tendencies as being an attack. No, it's not an attack. It's a correct judgment on the nature of the spirit that's underlying the dysfunction that you carry that causes the pattern of offenses that you generate, which is well within our jurisdiction to do. And as we explained in previous videos, we have in debates where one person has a moral conflict against another person, the right to speak is always held above any other right that would have been but is not, for to prevent defamatory speech. That gives a litigant or an arguer in a debate the full right to speak anything they want, including "you're an alien from Mars," because it's up to the other person to simply show up and say their side of the debate, which is, here's why I am not an alien from Mars. And they have to use their mouths and brains themselves in front of the open forum to show with actual effort and energy and logic why it's less likely that it's true that they're an alien from Mars. You see, you don't just get to for free say, no, it's not true, and because you say it's not true conclusorily, do we all have to magically bow our heads to believe you? No. So that's why the principle of the law is we are not barred from speech. We're actually protected in speech, and you have the obligation to defend yourself when the thing is said in an open forum, but you don't have the obligation to abrogate the entire forum itself. But what does it say? What does she say? I'm still open to discuss everything, to discussing everything amongst ourselves using you or a therapist's help. Already this is an insult. How many times was this woman told we firmly decline any therapeutic intervention at this stage? Right. So what's mega disrespect? It's repeating again something that we declined multiple times. Like, the sickness never ends. If we said we will not consent to therapy, you need to beg us to consider it first before you mention it. You don't just say it will be, because you should hang yourself for doing that. That's called not respecting man. You understand the difference? So you don't just say it, you have to beg for the permission because we denied it and we are the God here, you moron. The one who's the wrongdoer loses their rights, and the other one who they wronged becomes the God of the situation. In essence, that's kind of the truth about it. Now, I'm asking him to remove all the videos from YouTube if he's still interested in more meetings and possible reconciliation. You see how this attempts to transition and shift the burden of guilt here. By doing this, the mother will make it look like, see, I told him to remove it if he wants to continue, but he does not remove it, therefore we cannot continue. But whose fault is it? Oh, it's his fault, see, because he did not remove it. So this is a snake-like attempt to actually stop the progression of the meetings by making it look like it's the responsibility and cause and wrongdoing of the other person. So, class, look carefully and clearly. If a criminal defendant is brought to trial, do they have the right to say, oh, you know what, the prosecutor said some things about me that I didn't like or agree with, therefore all of this prosecution has to stop. And by the way, the judge has to go jump into the Atlantic Ocean and swim naked for 500 miles around and then come back before I will consider to continue with this trial as a defendant. But if he doesn't do that, then I won't. Does it then become the case that the judge is bad because he didn't go do some ridiculous thing that the defendant person in that position made up? No, of course not. No, you committed some moral wrongdoing or crime, which is why you're brought here, and now you're being held to account. And now you want to thwart it by what? While you have dirty hands, you're actually going to try to make it look like somebody else is doing something, which you have no right to claim because of what? The doctrine of unclean hands. Number one, which means that even if I was wrong, even if I called you something that's totally not fitting, so make up something that's just totally not the correct labeling application to this person, even if I was wrong, that would not merit you, such a person, to be in this position to say, okay, well, I'm interested, but I won't meet unless he does something. You don't have the moral jurisdiction to compel one in my position to remove YouTube videos. Why? Because, number one, what are these videos being posted for? What's the reason? Remember, I reached out to my mother initially? She didn't reach out. She didn't properly work with us for what? 7 months. Where Anthony had to then reach out. And she refused to work with Anthony in the same way. For what? 7 months. So recall that when you waive your rights and protections to the step 1 level Matthew 18 rebuke, which is privacy between you and them alone, and she waives step 2, which is working it out between you and a witness, you've defaulted on steps 1 and 2. So therefore, what happens then? We're allowed to publicize it. So therefore, it's not a moral wrong for me to state in a public forum what's happening. Once I do this, you cannot both waive and insult and prolong us for 7 months, and then on the other side of your mouth go, I don't agree with these videos, take them down. Do you see the problem that the person is in here? No, you were wrong from the beginning, but God's law says that the moment you were wrong from the beginning, the first moment, you lose all the rights. You lose all the rights. Your only right is right this way to the submission and the fucking begging and prison, karmic prison for you. There is no magic defense. There is no magic blame shifting. So here's the false slant. The false slant is, well, I'm going to command my son to do something that he doesn't have to do. But there's your problem. I don't have a moral obligation to take down those videos. It doesn't exist. So by God, like if we went to God level registry and said, God, was the right moral thing in this situation? So it's admitted she did morally wrong, but she resents that I call her a narcissist because she doesn't have the eye, whether or not is because she has the eyes to see or not see, or whether or not because I'm mistaken. Am I obligated to retract it? What would the God level emission say? It would say, no, she is the one who is wrong. She may not raise such a claim. By my law, she must bow her head and accept the judgment and confess. There is no claim, and she cannot enforce that the one who she wronged must do something back. It will not work under my law. You see that? That's the channeling of the God code. So does a woman agree with it? No, what do you mean? No, twisted blind brain won't run the show. Get it? Man's law is correctly interpreted. Women's law is a batch of feelings that constantly changes. The world will burn down if it's run by you. So God said men must run the world, not women. Remember that part? He did that for a fucking reason, you broken brains. That's the part you don't understand, because you keep believing your own ideas. That's the worst part. You're not smart enough to realize you're all wrong. Anyone with a brain would see it clear the way I show it. Obviously, it's a domination attempt. Yeah, sure. Make the court bend to your will, criminal defendant, right? No, it's never going to happen. It's the same as if the defendant would say, no, I'll tell you guys how and on what terms you're going to prosecute me. So just like the criminal defendant is powerless, you are powerless in the same way, because you are the wrong criminal bad one here. You don't get to make a change and a reframing, because that is obviously in the grand context where we see clearly, it's like, no, that's not she's not calling out something wrong he did. He's freely speaking his mind, and she's trying to make that change so that there's some kind of a regain of control. Well, she'll never get it. So we laughed at you even try this tactic. No, we're just simply going to call it out for what it is, which is woman's attempt to manipulate instead of woman's correct bowing to man. There's the only way it's allowed. But the second thing is you're trying to escape judgment, whether or not you're a woman or a man. Perhaps a man would simply be more understanding of the correct rhythm and wouldn't be challenging me. You see? In fact, I'm sure of that. That's why this is so important. Because you're more in default because of the nature you carry. You don't understand that part. So we only have to correct you even more. But it's such a waste of time, of our energy, so disrespectful to us. God said what in the Bible? He never said, oh, woman, if you really believe in yourself, then try to challenge that man sometimes if you really think you get it better. No, he said, don't even try ever. Don't even imagine. You get so power hungry inside that you believe you have the right vision. You never will. Not with a man, you won't. He'll always be many levels smarter because I made him that way. I made him that way. So stop insulting God by challenging me. Challenging his design. He already said you're stupider than me. So when you're both wrong and stupid, you're really in the worst position. Don't even dream to... You should do nothing except be on your back crying like a baby. That's the only thing that God finally says, now, finally we have some good in this situation. That's a turning towards me now. For the first time, the people are turning the situation towards me. Good. Until you do that, you're wrong and bad. But let's keep reading. She says, I made the huge mistake to agree to the first meeting without asking him to remove videos from YouTube. So it's not even, not even about the videos I put most recently that week. It's about all of it. Well, so how funny. Yet she met with us the first day seeming nice. And then now all of a sudden, he's all bad. He's all bad, right guys? That's a typical cluster B misallocation of the brain. They cannot see people as being worthy still. It's only, what, one thing that I don't like? Now you're all bad. No, you're not all bad. Maybe you're all blind. Very clear. And my response to him when he wrote this? Just, that's how fucking ridiculous it is. And I'm just tired of this. I'm just tired of this. Anthony continued on saying, I asked her to clarify, and she doesn't want to come to another meeting until the videos are removed, saying that she's canceling tomorrow. Is that morally correct action, or is that an insult of God's morality law structure? But why is it necessarily the second? Well, us men involved in the situation could see for sure, and so can anyone watching this as a witness from the outside who's a third party, because they're not entrained by the bullshit that my mom's trying to propagate. Clear. Saying that she's canceling tomorrow, that she's not narcissistic. So now pick a random subtopic. Doesn't matter that you violated your son's rights and dignity in 1,000 different ways. If he feels like calling you a narcissist because that's the type of thing you're demonstrating by at least a tendency type of relationship or property or nature, then God, maybe that's your key to escape now, isn't it, Barbara? Isn't that the key to escape? Now we can block the prosecution for all the wrongdoings you did, because if we get him on one thing, then it blocks everything else magically, right? Wrong. That's why the doctrine of unclean hands operates in this world since the ancient times. It means that the wrongdoer doesn't magically get to escape, because the fact that you did the wrong that led to the thing cuts you powerless, and it must be this way. So when you don't understand that, you're just actually more guilty. So guess what, Barbara? By doing it like this, you just increase the level of guilt you obtained in God's eyes. We rebuke you for this too, because this is not ethical manner of handling this, but you should know that already. Once they had removed the meetings can resume with either me or a therapist. Again, with this therapist shit. So when are we allowed to go to a therapist where I'm involved? When I say I do, but I said I didn't, so now I have to bow. Do you understand what law, power, manpower is? Quiet and kill yourself. If you don't, die, die, die. I hope you do. Figuratively speaking, at the very least. That's the insane shit.
The dream is that you get to control what the court does, what your victims do. No, it will be entrained upon you forever that the moment you wronged someone, they become your masters. That's what makes God smile. That's correct. Good. And I think this was sent the next day. Here's what she added on. Because, of course, do anything to change the focus and the attention. So if she's on trial, well, what's the defendant Snake's best tactic? Is to make the attention go somewhere else. So she writes, quote, he needs serious medical help. I don't know what that has to do with your wrongdoing. You're just as wrong and just as obligated to pay the guilt of the effect of your wrongdoing, whether or not I happen to, in an unrelated sphere, need medical help for my medical conditions. You see that? Right, that's also clearly true. But she continues, reconciliation, therefore, won't work without him doing that first. Throwing a monkey wrench into it. Right, but so now we clearly expose it for what it is, clearly show what she's trying to do, and that's disgusting. Anyone can see that this is absolutely disgusting. Wow, it's very clear. People would look at this and say, that's unbelievable. She's totally trying to hijack everything onto her control, but not really her control, just to get it to stop. You see, just to get it to stop. Because she doesn't have the humility to say, yes, I'm guilty, yes, sit me down for many weeks in a row and yell at me and point fingers at me, that's fine. That's correct, yin. Whoever's guilty, by the way, needs to become yin. You see, even if you're a guy or a man or a yang, well, if you yanged the wrong way, now you're yin, which means you're passive, you go still and you shut the fuck up because you're guilty. So you lose the right to operate in reality until your payment is complete. You see that? So I asked him to get the medical treatment. So first of all, I'm not your servant. I don't do something because you had me do it. Oh, did he get it? Therefore he didn't get it? He didn't listen to me when I commanded him to do it, so therefore he will not accuse me. See, you see the sick shit? But anyone with moral eyes would say, right, she has no moral basis to talk this way. She has no moral basis to even talk this way. This is obviously an unmerited, immoral attempt to shift away from the weight of the burden of the guilt that it would rightly come onto her shoulders. But she continues on, the smear campaign is based on pure lies, wrong facts, and wrong interpretation, and foul language, omissions, I don't know what that means, and many more fabrications. Well, I resent that, so on the record, I'll just say that I deny that there's fabrications, because there are no fabrications. I deny that any facts presented are wrongly interpreted as reasonably wrong, because they're not interpreted wrong at all to begin with. And the characterization of what I'm doing as a smear campaign, well, I addressed that a little more subtly or tacitly in previous videos, is not a smear campaign to teach you what you did wrong. That's taking you and putting you through account the way God tells me to. So I follow God, lady. I don't follow you. And God's instructions are extremely clear in writing. You see how perfect it is? So when you try to challenge God, you'll always lose. So the clear thing is, I don't owe you anything. We don't have to stop because I didn't get medical help. I don't even know what the fuck that means. But even if something were to happen where I needed to get medical help, you're the last person on earth who gets to invoke that as some kind of barrier or protection to yourself. Because why? You cannot use something, you cannot both become offensive and then at the same time use something else as a shield when you're guilty of offense. Offense forces auto shield lowering so that you can get hit in the heart correctly by the guilt spear. It must fucking blow you up and destroy you so that the evil is destroyed. You understand that in the metaphorical, figurative sense? So she continues, I won't be explaining them via messages. Oh, wow, that's very convenient. So via messages, she insists that I'm a liar, but she won't substantiate why I'm a liar over the same messages that she uses to call me a liar. Do you see the contradiction there? So again, false woman brain, bad moral, bad person, bad human, not thinking correctly, evil, evil. Twist, 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 addiction, you should kill yourselves. Everyone who's evil. See that? You see the difference? So sick, and we call it out for what it is, because it's obviously sick. I won't be explaining then. That's why all this stuff should be discussed. In person? Oh, the same in person that you're trying to block by insisting that I do something that I don't have to do and shouldn't do. In fact, I have a moral obligation not to take them down. Why? Because if I took them down, what would it be teaching and showing the wrongdoer? That they run the terms of the court, and not the accused, who brings jurisdiction for a larger group of people to sit down and evaluate what the wrongdoer did. You see, the prosecution works with the court to run the court by the terms that God says are the rules, not Barbara's rules. Because the defendant will always try to escape, escape, escape. So your instinct is wrong. That's why you're blocked from having influence. God says always block the defendant from having influence in the prosecution. And the only instruction they were given was what? Agree with your adversary. Agree with your plaintiff. Agree with the one who's accusing you. So because you broke Jesus' law, you are now karmically cursed. That's it. Very simple. Very simple. She continues, his refusal to do the right thing won't solve anything. You see the reframe magic? As pathetic as it is, no one believes it. You see, all she thinks she has to do is make it look like he's the one who's refusing to do the right thing. So therefore, it won't solve anything. No, no, no. My doing the right thing looks like this. The videos stay up because I owe you no grace, no favor to take them down, because they can, number one, they contain truth, but number two, even if they contain lies, they still ought to stay up, because it's your obligation to show up in person and then explain how and why they're lies. You don't get to twist it and enforce it yourself preemptively by withdrawing while claiming I'm the one who's making it. No, no, no. I'm saying you should be showing up now, and we're all ready to show up, and it's you who's responsible for not showing up when we call for the meeting and you don't come. But you yourself said that you're not participating until it's taken down. So that's your responsibility, not me. I'm as responsible for taking them down as if someone in my mother's position were to say yes. And then secondly, and by the way, when's it ever going to end? That's another problem too. Once you make one concession with a Hitler or a Nazi type, it's never going to be the appeasement that finally grants the peace. The next meeting is going to be another one. Oh, and by the way, he needs to clean his room. So I don't know, and maybe I go down there all the time with my own key to look inside when he's not home. Who knows? Maybe it's, I'm saying maybe it's my opinion. I'm not saying anything for sure. We can make up a whole bunch of things. Maybe I think his room's too messy, so I cannot go to solve anything unless his room. Now, next one, you know, he should do this, he should do that, and then it never fucking ends. No. We're not going to bend God's rules because we would be the one in the sin. I won't permit us to come into sin by listening to your shit. Therefore, my bond to God is pristinely pure. You will never break it. Nice try. Me doing it this way is the right thing. And your refusal to do the right thing is what will fail to solve this the correct way for you. Let that be clear. And then finally, later on, I don't remember if that was the day after or the day after that, she said, my friend Anthony said, by the way, she sent a bunch of Bible quotes earlier today. Now, recall that in the last few videos I've been assessing the nature of these quotes. Well, I did this in advance so that when we arrive to these quotes now, because this is what she's turning to in defense to substantiate why she believes that she's morally merited. She's not. Why she believes she's fake morally merited to continue in the way she's doing. Well, she's turning to this. Matthew says, well, don't judge or you too will be judged. For the same way you judge others, you'll be judged. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Yeah, that's what I've been saying to my mom. You see. But look at the hypocrisy. First of all, if this was true, well, In that case, this is an attempt by my mom, a supposed attempt to advocate for a free forgiveness policy. This means, oh, I don't know, just anyone should just freely step away from judging. Well, we referred earlier to what was meant by this type of judging. It means judging without cause. No, if you're the wrongdoer and you're doing something against the victim, Christ specifies very clearly that victim needs to rebuke you and then cause the whole community to condemn you and ostracize you. That has to happen. So he's not contradicting himself. If you think he's contradicting himself, then your understanding is broken, because that's not what is happening. You see that? But what she's trying to do here is to advocate for a free forgiveness policy. But if that's so, then, if I called my mom a narcissist, shouldn't she be not judging me? So she's contradicting herself as a hypocrite here, because she's saying don't judge others, but at the same time she's saying, look at him, he's lying, so there's gonna be consequences, and he needs to do this, he needs to do that. That's a judging. You don't realize how blind you are until I say it this way. Then you're like, oh well, shit, he's right. Yeah, no kidding. So do you think to demonstrate your policy position of free grace and free forgiveness, you yourself would have to do it too? So do you see how you claiming this bars you from any kind of attempted rally against me about having attributed narcissism to you? That's why God's law is perfect, because every logical loop clicks into itself correctly, properly, when you have man's mind, which analyzes it all correctly. You don't get it until you fucking have it broken down for your small mind in this way. Then you realize, wow, yeah, right, technically I'm not doing that with him when I show this active reaction about that. Right, see, that's breaking the do not judge. He's lying, he's this, he's bad. You're judging. So therefore, because you judged, you too will be judged. That's God's law correctly applied. So therefore, you are to be judged. Okay, Anthony and me, let's go judge her now, because we're allowed to by God, because you are judging us. You see? Very easy. Never challenge God-man mind. And she continues, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and try to take it out when all the time there's a fucking larger chip or plank in your own eye? Don't be a hypocrite. First you need to clear your own vision so that you see. Nice try. But as Anthony and I already discussed deeply over the phone, and he clearly understands the meaning of this passage, we both resent it and say, definitely in this situation, my mother has the blind vision, and we are the ones correctly attributing what should be happening, but she wants to reverse it, and in her own blindness, she believes that we're the blind ones. That's the irony that never ends. No. 2 men have already declared that you have it wrong. Nice try. Next. Don't judge, you won't be judged. Don't condemn, you won't be condemned. Yeah, forgiven, you won't be forgiven. Well, she's not forgiving, so therefore we aren't to be forgiving either. Thank you, God, for that important prompt. Very good, right? Next. Give and it will be given to you. Be yin. Hey, yin. Are you being yin? Are you trying to be yang? But never forget Matthew 18. Don't slander one another. Exactly. Don't call your son a liar, you stupid woman. That's slandering me. You see, so you break all your own ideas. But furthermore, the principle of law already established that slander cannot take place within a moral debate or litigation kind of proceeding, any kind of adversarial debate or issue where there's a group of people formed around it to resolve it. Both people are entitled to a freedom of speech that is not slander. We're entitled to say what we want and then to come in and defend ourselves just as freely. But you are doing wrong. Anthony and I analyze these words carefully, very carefully, and discuss them at a long length on the phone. We're just showing some of this the content is beautiful, but the context sucks because it's coming from this woman's mind who thinks that this is the reason why that everything should be fine and protecting of her and never come to prosecute her about the wrong she did. Why doesn't she cite Matthew 18? You see, there you go. That's the brokenness of her understanding, not understanding. Okay? You therefore have no excuse who pass judgment on someone else. You're not someone else. You're the one who hurt me. See, that's different. You're the wrongdoer who hurt me. You're not someone else who hurt someone else that's not me. You don't even know how to read in English to extract the meaning correctly. You clarified the law already. Understand? And here, when you're a human being, you pass judgment on them when you do the same things. I never abused the woman in any like manner that she has been here found to abuse me, nor has she ever claimed it properly in order to gain jurisdiction. No, these are unique offenses that come from her. I've never done any of this weird sick shit that she's doing to me, so therefore I have full right to rebuke it. That's right, everybody. Stay free of the actual sin, and you maintain the right to correctly rebuke other people. Good. Because as Christ said in the Bible elsewhere, be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. Not be flawed and then talk about how Jesus says it's okay. That's not what he ever said. Live in harmony with one another. Good. Do you think it's harmony to come into the relationship with your son by fighting and denying and refusing to sit down? That's not the meaning of the word harmony. So therefore, you will suffer for causing such bad things. That's right. Living at peace? Well, this is not peace. Very easy. And then her favorite one, when people bring up your past, just tell them Jesus dropped the charges. Okay? Oh my God. Jesus dropped the charges. They're so fucking... Oh God. That's why the world will always have evil in it. Because of never-ending misunderstandings brought to us by Eve. Thank you, you broken piece of crap. Stop it. The only way to fix it, God also told you in the New Testament. All women shut the fuck up, listen to men, don't argue with them, and then you'll have the most functional society you could have ever dreamed of. But we know that's God's word, because it's in the Bible. Open it up and worship it. See? That's not John, that's God. Look with your eyes. And finally later on he says a quick summary of when Anthony spoke to her, which I wasn't even aware that they did until after it happened, and he just simply lets me know she's just still unwilling to meet unless the videos are taken down. Okay, but because you're trying to claim something that you have no right to claim for, I will simply say, okay, well then Barbara's defaulted from being able to defend herself at the meetings we hold. So that's it. So if you waive your own right to be there to protect and defend your own integrity and reputation, and we just hold the meetings the same without you and record them, and you can't then complain to us and say, oh, you said more things that are untrue, because we just say, yeah, and you fucking failed to meet up with us when you owed to meet up with us. So the fake slant is that she just invented a new way where she believes it's like false, morally okay to not show up for meetings anymore. No. When you gave your word to Anthony in particular, and also to me, to two men, that I will participate every week, and then you magically change your mind, God hurts you because you made a promise, but you broke it without cause. You're trying to invent a cause. But because your immoral mind is inventing a cause, doesn't mean the cause is proper. What if I said, son, for me to feed you today, you have to shoot yourself in the head. Then when you have a bloody wound in your skull, then I will feed you. Oh, you didn't shoot yourself? Well, then I won't feed you. And then you try to say, no, it's not my fault he's not fed today. It's his fault because he didn't do the crazy thing I asked him to do. So simply go to the Bible to see what the law and rights are for all the parties. Those are the laws and rights of God. I will not bend them or break them ever. Don't do it. No one should do it. So take the videos down only because I don't like what you're saying. No, you will not compel me to do that. You owe something more, and these are the terms of how to properly mediate. This is your attempt to block from an eventual step 3 within the process, the rebuke process, which is tell the whole assembly. In Matthew 18:17, I believe, it says, you shall tell the whole assembly. But if something wrong is said about you, number one, you shouldn't even disagree with it anyway. But if you believe it's wrong and you have a right to speak, well, we invited you to speak, but you said, oh, I don't want to text about it. So you just waived your right to defend yourself. So therefore, we find you to be wrong and maliciously enacting wrong against me. But by the way, it doesn't even matter if I'm right or wrong. But just anyway, to show you extra how wrong you are, we're actually going to go and analyze narcissism in the following video. And then me and Anthony will jointly rate how we find your actions to match up with each of the elements shown to give a final rating to determine whether or not your overall way of being is consistent with narcissism or not. We're in by multiple objective assessments, multiple people will come to the same conclusion if we do, but I have a feeling we will because it's extremely clear for me already, and I'm never wrong. You're just going to be more embarrassed because now it'll just be made more clear how all along it's just been a narcissist who's been a narcissist by the criteria evaluation, who clearly is also just trying to avoid being shamed, which is what narcissists do by nature. A good person will say, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm in shame. Yes, you may accuse me and hold me to shame, and that's fine, and that's good, and let me be shamed. You see, that's the part you don't get, because you avert that, you try to get away from that. That's what exposes you as being a narcissist. It's so easy for us who have vision, but only when you're blind, you don't get it. So this is pretty much everything relevant that's happened to date. At this point, there's a slower, I think he's writing emails to her. I don't know what the contents of those emails are. He has not shared what exactly he's written. He and I have collaborated somewhat on the kinds of things that ought to be addressed in terms of more detailed issues. You also have to realize, verbally, I'm not as accurate as I am in writing. So when we talk, but then I also get to write things down and put my ideas into notes, that's where you have the really super precise harpoons, fucking hyper robotic micro fucking precision. All right? You get the emotional talk on here, where you go to my notes, you're gonna get like hyper law reality, like it's a Bible in and of itself with super clear precision that it would win law cases in real courts because of how precise it is. While here it's more rah, 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 which is fine. So, you know, based on what me and Anthony discuss, and then what we write and what we find to be the wrong points, we know as men who's wrong and who's right when we use logic that God gave us to assess what the hell you're doing, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. So now we already assessed who's right, who's wrong. Now I'm not talking to my mom directly anymore. He can fucking go take his understanding that he formed with me when we analyzed this situation, where he fully agrees. He is not looking at this and saying, yeah, your mom's right. You don't get it? Anyone in the world looking at this, not one person would watch this whole thing, look at you. We have fairly shown everything that, at least that was shared to me. Anthony has more, but he doesn't share everything actually. That's okay. But regardless, anyone would go ask him and ask me, we both say, yeah, it's just so clear this whole time how this woman keeps being in default, not doing the right thing, denying, defending, and acting like a debtor instead of a creditor. So, of course, the court of God finds against her because she's trying to escape. So escapees get hurt, while people who are willing to lose their lives will keep it, but those who try to hold on to their lives will lose it. Christ is right. And one other thing, he also added, she also says that to continue to provide help at this rate financially won't be possible for very long. Just maybe for now. See that? Very funny time to mention that too. So when you have a practically almost disabled son, which, by the way, if he's disabled, then really you shouldn't be treating people like this at all who are not disabled. But if they're kind of disabled, then you really need to be giving extra double grace, triple grace. Are you fucking crazy? That's the disgusting thing that makes people watch this and fall into disgust with you, disgusting woman. So when we see this, this isn't a simple declaration of, oh, my mom is fairly and righteously just simply declaring that she'll, cut off. No. The point is, well, I'll be fine no matter what, because I trust in God every day. But the problem is that the woman is trying to, in substance, trying to thread and tie together what we're doing with what she's giving. So is that conditional love or unconditional love? Oh, he's putting narcissist videos about me, then I won't help him. Doesn't matter what he did, because you aren't being yin with full unconditional giving. You get the karmic price. That's it. How many times you got to repeat the same God laws over and over until you people get it?